If you're betting week 3 of the NFL, here's everything you need to know to win big. Let's get started with our community favorites. You guys voted in the app, and here are the 6 most favorited player props of week 3. John, tell me who stands out to you on this list.
I mean, let's just start at the top here. Jamar Chase, obviously, I put him in the picture here for good reason. He obviously hasn't been himself this year so far, but there's nothing like a get-right game against the Washington Commanders secondary, which everybody seems to have get-right games against. So I'm going to save a lot of the stats that I have for later because he might be one of my elite players of the game for that Monday night matchup. But B-Dot, what you got? What you got on this list that looks good to you?
Man, I got to start at the bottom, man. I got to go with Justin Jefferson, over 5.5 receptions. He's going to be Sam Darnold's, favorite target. He is his favorite target. He's the best wide receiver in the league. And I'm predicting 7 to 8 receptions for Justin Jefferson in another big week. What about you, Todd?
So, definitely want to highlight Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was my player prop for last week, and it was at like 78.5 yards. He ended up going for over 100. And if you look at his week 1 and week 2, he had 3 times the amount of targets than he did in the opener against the Rams. Mm-hmm. So they definitely know they need to make it a priority to get him the rock. And I think it's going to be a good matchup against Arizona, especially after coming off of just an absolutely dominating victory against the Rams. I think you're going to see them maybe pull back a little bit. And Amon-Ra St. Brown hopefully can continue to do well and roll into what he was able to do last week.
Yeah, I love it. Arizona's secondary is definitely nothing special. I know they looked pretty good against the Rams, but they definitely struggled against the Bills in week 1 too. So we've seen that firsthand for sure.
So let's keep this moving, guys. Now that we've talked about the community favorites, why don't we talk about our best bets for week 3? John, talk to me, man. Who do you like for week 3?
Well, man, it's like 2020, 2019 out here with Alvin Kamara getting all these touchdowns and stuff like that. I forget what year that was. Maybe that was 2018, but it's been a while for Alvin Kamara, but he seems to be returned to form, and that's probably more likely because of the pieces that he has around him, not just him in this case. But those Saints, I mean, they haven't punted yet. They've been 14 for 14 scoring on drives, and Alvin Kamara looks good in all of these games too. He's at 83 and 115 yards in the first 2 games respectively. Those are pretty good totals. And it's a good matchup against the Eagles as well, who actually really do not have a good rushing defense this year so far. They're 25th in rushing yards allowed, and they're dead last in yards per attempt allowed. So all he's going to need at those numbers is like 10 to 12 carries, at 6.4 yards per attempt. And he's been getting 15 and 20 carries, 15 carries versus Carolina, 20 versus Dallas, and he's at home in the Dome. So I love how this sets up, especially with the matchup and how his form is recently through these weeks. What do you guys think?
I like that. 100% agree, especially come out the performance he had last week. He's the top fantasy guy by far.
Yeah, for sure. I got him in my backfield. I drafted him in 4th round or something like that. So that was a steal. But yeah, for sure. B-Dot, what you got? What's your best bet for this week?
My best bet, I got my guy Deshaun Watson. I got him. Look at that EP score, 99.9. I got him over 30.5 passing attempts. I'm going against New York Giants. They're nothing to brag about. Sorry to all my Giants fans out there, but last week against the Jaguars, he had 35 pass attempts, 486 yards. Prior, he just missed that target. He missed that 30.5 by 1. He only had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Last game, he didn't have any touchdowns. So I think this game we're going to see Deshaun Watson get his first passing touchdowns of the year. So I'm getting that end zone a couple times, and I got no more than 35 attempts. I think it's going to be I don't want to say an easy game, but I think it'll be an easier game in general for him, and they're going to rely heavily on Deshaun Watson's arm, shoulder. Let's hope it's never mind. What do you think?
I'm glad you took the attempts, because he does seem to attempt a lot of passes, but his passing yards is pretty low. Like last week, I took his under, and that hit pretty handily. I mean, if a couple of longer completions weren't dropped by his receivers, I think Amari Cooper had a big drop last week, then maybe he goes over on that total. But yeah, definitely love the over on the attempts, and maybe looking at his under on yards, because that offense, while he's been attempting a lot of passes, has been largely inefficient in the process. So I really like that line, and 99.99 EP score. That means there's something to that data.
Can't go wrong with it, man. Especially the numbers say, you know, according to analytics, this has been this year's worst in the past 10 years for passing yards and total touchdowns. You know, this season so far, I think there has been a total of 69 touchdowns, which accumulates to like 1 touchdown per game. So, you know, the highest was 2015, but that's when we had elite quarterbacks. You know, not saying there aren't any this season. I just think the defensive player has gotten really great. You know, these past 4 or 5 years in the NFL. That's why we've seen these passing yards, you know, go under. Yep. So if you're taking an under on these passing yards, man, you're most likely going to hit.
Yeah, I think everybody's figured out if you take away the big plays with cover 2 and 2 high safeties, then you end up winning the war of attrition, you know, with, you know, an offense needing to not make mistakes going down the field. So it's become a little bit of a dink and dunk. And I think you can definitely see that with Cleveland's offense and getting over 30.5 passing attempts right there for sure. But T, what you got cooked up?
So yeah, I've been doing pretty successful in terms of the receiving yard props. So I'm going to continue to go with that, and I'm going with CeeDee Lamb's over 78.5 receiving yards. Now I know that it does say 81.5 on our graphic. I was able to get this in at 78.5, maybe a few hours before it jumped up onto this line. So definitely look at
Tyler made the line move. He's he announced it, and everybody got their money in earlier. So, you know,
if you're betting on multiple sports books, definitely see if you can get it at that 78.5 line. You know, definitely shop around if you can, because maybe you can get it for a little bit better than it is at this 81.5. Didn't mean to cut you off there, John.
No, you're good. I totally cut you off, man, first. So
it's okay. No problems. But yeah, like I said, I have it at 78.5 receiving yards. I absolutely love this matchup for Lamb against a Ravens passing defense that has more holes in it than a fine Swiss cheese. If you look at their statistics and their numbers, they're ranked in the bottom of the league in multiple passing categories. They've given up the most passing yards in the entire league so far. So if you even look further into CeeDee Lamb's numbers, he's exceeded 80 yards receiving in the last 4 of 5 games that he's played. He had 90 last week, and he did deal with a bit of an injury issue. So most of those yards he got within the first 2 or 3 quarters of the game. He does have a questionable tag coming into this week, and I know that could scare some folks away, which is why I personally don't think he made it into the top 6 in the community favorites. But he did say himself that he's going to be fine, and then it's nothing more than some soreness. So he may not even be on the injury report come game day. So the fact that this line at 78.5 or even at 80 or 81, I think it's just too low. In particular, in regards to the app, he has one of the highest EP scores for all of the receiving props for week 3. So you know, don't really need much convincing to make this my best bet for Sunday.
I love it. I like that you described it as a fine Swiss cheese, because I've heard of Swiss cheese defenses, but to be described as a fine Swiss cheese defense, I feel like it's next level. So I want to see the over-under on this game, because we also described Dallas's defense as a fine just a regular Swiss cheese last week. So this might be the Swiss cheese battle. I don't know, Swiss cheese bowl, whatever you want to call it. But good for fantasy, good for props, for overs.
I'm not a Swiss cheese expert per se, but I do think that the finer Swiss cheeses have more holes in them. So not an expert. You could have fooled me, man. I think you got it going on. So but
I like that.
Yeah, this one was too easy in terms of the EP score and just seeing what CeeDee's done. And not to mention the Cowboys haven't looked great, and they're kind of in a win now mode. So I think if they're going to want to win, they're going to have to feed CeeDee. But yeah, let's keep this train moving. We're going to actually now move on to DFS stacks for week 3. And obviously one of the keys to winning in DFS is to having those right stacks in your lineup. John, any stacks, any teams in particular that you like for Sunday?
Yeah, man. I think this is a great example of how EP score helps with stacks. So my favorite stack for this week is Kyler Murray and Trey McBride. So the reason that EP score can help with this kind of stuff is because the way that I would normally think about it, I'd want Kyler Murray and the guy with the highest ceiling, which is probably Marvin Harrison Jr. after that game that he had last week. But because of that game that he had last week, his salary is going to be a lot higher. So for the money, for the bang for your buck, I'm sure the EP score takes that into account. These guys scored the highest. So I'm taking Kyler Murray and Trey McBride this week. Again, MHJ is the more explosive option probably, but you're going to pay a premium. And these guys got a good matchup too. Detroit's very mid secondary is always going to be a good option as long as that trend continues. So, but what do you guys think of that?
I like that. Yeah, it makes the most sense, especially off the game he's coming from last week. Hey, you got to ride with Murray, man. You got to ride.
Yeah. I think you called that last week, Vita. You were talking about Kyler Murray before anybody believed in him because, I watched him play against the Bills and was like, down here on him. But, great game. Great game last week.
It's getting cooler out here in Arizona, so everyone's back to thinking normal, playing normal the way they are. We don't got to worry about the 115-degree heat, man. So you can think straight now.
That's true. And you said he has been in the clubs lately, so you haven't seen him in the clubs.
I ain't seen him, man. I just seen him doing his thing, man. I ain't seen Kai out no time soon.
All right. Kyler Murray, a valuable stack until the next COD comes out, which I think is soon. So keep an eye on that for your bets. But anyway, B-Dot, who you got stacked up this week?
I'm going with CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, man. Look at the EP score. They're all over 80. And Stroud has a favorable matchup against the Vikings, who defense ranks 25th in NFL, allowing 230 passing yards per game. So gives him a great opportunity to exploit that secondary. And, Stroud's one of the most efficient quarterbacks, we have in the game so far, throwing for almost 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then, come on, we got to talk about Nico Collins. If he's been the best wide receiver in the NFL, this year, going for numbers. Accumulating over 28% of the yards on the offense. And last week he had 135 yards and a touchdown. His ability to perform after the catch, yards after the catch, he had 47 in week 2. So, and then their chemistry, man, like you can't go wrong with these guys, man. Going from, barring these past 2 weeks, seeing the camaraderie they've built together. And I think it's going to be another breakout, well, at least very solid game for Nico, because you got to account for Tank Dell and then Stephon Diggs. So Nico just going to keep flying under the radar and hopefully another 125 plus game. How you feel about that, Ty?
Yeah, I absolutely like it. I think the Vikings had an emotional victory against the Niners. And I think even Brock Purdy after the game came up to Flores and said that your schemes are crazy, man, which isn't a great look on Purdy. But that being said, I think the Vikings are going to take a step back this coming week. And Stroud is continuing to show he's a leader, and he's going to lead this football team to great places. And so far, between the three-headed monster of Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and Nico Collins, it seems like Nico Collins is really that security blanket. So for DFS reasons, I think this is a great play this week.
Love it. What you got for yours, Ty?
Yeah. So for me, I wanted to ride the trend on this one. Based on how these two guys have been playing the first 2 weeks, as well as the team. But I'm going to go with the Saints stack, which is going to be Derek Carr and Rashid Shaheed. Carr has been a top 3 fantasy QB so far to start the season. If I'm not mistaken, I think John mentioned a crazy stat in one of our previous podcasts. Maybe it was week 1 or week 2, or maybe following week 2, that they haven't punted on the offensive side of the football. That may have changed since that was brought up. But
no, I said it 5 minutes ago, so I hope it hasn't changed since then.
I thought maybe on Wednesday you may have mentioned.
I probably repeated it. I repeat information often, so it's. I definitely. I think I said it twice.
I know you. I think I remember you mentioned David Carr.
Yes. Oh, that's right. David Carr got mentioned on the last podcast. That was worth the price of admission just for that.
But it was that thought there, that statistic that you threw out to me that was like, I might have to eye him up for a DFS option this week. But outside of Carr, let's look at Shaheed. He's been absolutely a breakout star so far for them to start out the season. He's got 169 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns already. He's the obvious deep threat in the offense. So I love his ceiling against a weak Eagles secondary that's ranked 28th in passing yards allowed. They just haven't looked great on that side of the ball, especially when it comes to their secondary. So with how great Carr and Shaheed have been playing, I think this is a great DFS stack. And especially for how much their cost is compared to some of the top DFS players. So with all that said, man, I'm marching in with the Saints, and I'm going to stack Derek Carr and Shaheed. And for those who maybe don't like Shaheed, you can put Olave in there as well. He's a little bit more expensive, but you definitely got to have some Saints in your lineup this week. Their offense has just been too good to ignore it.
Yeah, Shaheed could easily, what has he had, like 60-yard touchdowns the first 2 weeks or something like that, and get all those points on one play. And also I'm loving that 31st ranked opponent there on the Raheed Shaheed screenshot right there. That's a tasty matchup for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to keep this moving to. So typically we have one Monday night game that we go through, but for this week, for week 3, we actually have 2 Monday night games. But we're going to kick it off with the first Monday night game, that is the Jaguars at the Bills. And before we get into the actual game picks, I do want to see who our best bets are in terms of player props for this game. So John, tell me. You're the resident Bills fan here. Tell me, what do you got? Who do you like?
Well, I decided not to be a homer this week. So I went with ETN's over on rushing yards, because of the EP score. But so a little insight from the Bills here. Last week against the Dolphins, the Bills played with 6 and 7 man boxes. So for those of you familiar with the light box, light box is anything 7 or less. And they did that for 90% of snaps. They were just like, please run at us so you're not throwing to Tyreek or Jalen Waddle. Now, I know that the Jaguars don't have, Tyreek and Waddle on the outside, but that's what the Bills like to do. They like to defend deep, and they like to invite you to run because they know that they can probably make a stop or two on certain downs and then, get the ball that way. So another interesting stat here, Jacksonville has the highest deep pass rate in the league. So they've thrown 11 deep passes so far this year. Lawrence is 7 for 11 on those passes, which is really good for deep passes. But one thing that Buffalo does better than anybody in the entire league since Sean McDermott's been around has been defend that deep pass and force you to go underneath and force offenses to have long drives. They allow explosive plays at like the lowest rate in the last 5 years. Yeah, and it's by a long shot. So also in this, the Bills are starting 2 backup linebackers with Matt Milano out until at least December. He's been out for most of the season. And then they lost Terrell Bernard, their starting middle linebacker. So they'll be having a backup there, Balin Spector. I think that the Bills are going to invite Travis Etienne to run a little bit because it's better than letting up deep passes to their old buddy Gabe Davis or, Christian Kirk or that guy that they got in town, Brian Thomas Jr. So I think that's going to be the game plan for them.
Definitely can see why you like that, especially if the game is close. I know that the line, the spread might not necessarily indicate that, but if this is a close game, they're going to be feeding ETN. And the fact that it's only at 50 yards combined with what the EP score is telling us, outside of a blowout or something like that, I don't see how he is not going to get multiple opportunities. And it's good to know also, like you said, it sounds like the Bills are a little more banged up than maybe the average fan may think.
Yeah, for sure. B-Dot, what you got cooked up for this game?
Man, I'm going with Josh Allen.
My guy.
Come on, man. I'm going with Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns. At an 82.67 EP score, you got to go, man. When it's over 80, I'm going with it, man. His Jacksonville Jaguars defense, there isn't that. They aren't miraculous, which makes his chances of surpassing the 1.5 touchdowns even greater. They've struggled defending the pass this year. They rank among the easier matchups for quarterbacks. So that just only further, boosts the likelihood of Allen hitting, that multiple touchdown mark. And also they rely a lot on Josh Allen's arm, especially in that red zone. When you have those guys such as, Stephen Diggs, he's not there anymore. But with his reliable guys he has there now, he's definitely getting over 2. I was right last week. Well, this past week with Aaron Rodgers over 2 touchdowns. I think Josh Allen, this is going to be another great game for him. If not a breakout game, we could see Josh Allen go crazy this game, just going against this diminished Jacksonville Jaguars defense. And yeah, man, that's how I feel. Josh Allen 2 or more touchdowns. I'm looking at 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 2 passing, 256 yards, 67 rushing yards. Come on, man. Josh Allen. Y'all better put him in. If y'all don't got him on this fantasy, y'all better add him.
That's gonna make a great clip. It's gonna make a great clip if that stat line rings true, man. I'm telling you.
I'm standing on business, man.
B-Dot's got a sixth sense about these passing touchdowns lately, so I'd be inclined to believe him on that. Also, plus 100 on the upside of that line too. So it's a spicier bet than Tyler and I cooked up as well. But
you know me, man. I like to take a risk, man. I like to take a risk. So Josh Allen. That's a good risk to take, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say he likes taking risks too, actually. So
he do. Hey, one of the top 3 quarterback in the league, if not number 1.
Absolutely.
I got you, John. I got you. Come on, man. What you got for us, Ty?
So for my best bet for this game, I decided to go with Gabe Davis over 2.5 receptions. Gabe Davis has had 3 receptions in the first 2 games of the season, and he was targeted 7 times last week. And in terms of who the wide receiver 1 is over there, it seems like it's kind of a toss-up so far. Christian Kirk, who was initially their guy, hasn't really been getting any love the first 2 games. So more opportunities seem to be going Gabe Davis's way as the season has progressed so far. And now if you look at this matchup, the Bills are favored by nearly a touchdown. So I do expect that the Bills are going to get up. And it's going to turn into a pass-heavy game script to keep up with the Superman that is Josh Allen. So that's a big factor for me. I just think that they're going to be playing from behind, so they're going to need to chuck the rock. And I would say the cherry on top, and one of the big reasons for me is I'm just a sucker for revenge games. So I'm riding the Gabe Davis revenge game against his former team. Give me over 2.5 receptions. I'm going to call a touchdown too to go along with B-Dot's formula there. So I think Gabe Davis wants to come in and let them know who he really is.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're definitely going to try to get on the ball. Like, teams say that they don't care about this stuff, but they do. They do. You know, he's been practicing a little bit harder this week than he does on most weeks. You know that he's been working that, say he's not going to drop passes like he usually does or did a couple times in Buffalo. But no, I like Gabe Davis, as we call him around these parts. I think that's a great bet. Consistency is everything. Gabe had a couple games last year where he had a 0 on the stat sheet, which frustrated some fantasy owners. But he also gets those games where he has 7 receptions and 2 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns in the 13 seconds game. So I think over 2.5 receptions is a safe bet for sure.
No, I like that also.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that you're going to see this EP score go up as we get into Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So it's sitting at 85 right now, but I'm going to guess and potentially bet that's going to be up by into the 90s by the time we get into Monday morning. And these 2 games, or the 2 games, the second one we're going to go over, they start to focus on these. So I know at minus 150-ish, it's not the best, but he only needs 3 catches. So, and he's already done it so far to start the season. Combined with the fact that it's against his old team, I like it a lot.
For sure.
Yeah. So as I said, there's Monday Night Football. There's a doubleheader this week. So
do you want to make our game picks first before we go to that second game?
So sorry.
You're good. You're good. I mean, honestly, like think about it. We could have skipped this part. I'm a Bills fan. You know who I'm going to take. Like this. Come on. No, but Jacksonville has been the Achilles heel of the Bills. We've lost to Urban Meyer 9-3. That was embarrassing. We lost in London. Matt Milano tore every CL in his leg. And since then, I mean, obviously Jacksonville's been reeling for these past 2 weeks. And then they lost 7 of their last 8, I think in the last season. They kind of imploded similarly to the Eagles. But so they could be dangerous, but this game is in Buffalo. So I'm going to go Buffalo. I think that they clear the spread, and if they look anything like they did in the first 2 weeks, they're going to continue to do really well against the Jaguars, who are really not finding their footing so far this year. But B-Dot, you with me on that? Do you agree?
100%, man. Especially going to be raining. They're definitely not going to find their footing in this game. I think Trevor Lawrence is really going to struggle against that Buffalo Bills defense, especially coming off the week they had last week. Oh man, I'm hoping for Tyler's sake that Gabe Davis, gets at least 5 reception and gets that 1 touchdown. But I think that'll be the only touchdown of the game. If he does get a touchdown, it may come late. But I think this is going to be a great game for the Bills, and Jaguars are going to go down once again.
Love it. Tyler, what about you? Who are you going with?
Yeah, so I'm going to roll with Bills -5 here. It's going to be hard for me to bet against the Bills. They're in Buffalo. It's Monday Night Football. Beers will be chugged. Tables will be smashed. These fans are going to be super pumped up for a primetime game like this.
That'll also be happening in my living room, by the way. All those things. So.
Well, we're going to have to do a live episode
right.
at John's, and that sounds like a plan, then, gentlemen. All right, but if you just look at this game, the Bills have had plenty of rest. They've had over 10 days rest since that Thursday Night Football game where Tua nearly lost his life, while the Jags have started off 0-2 and have just not looked great. The offense in particular with Trevor Lawrence, the word I would like to use is putrid. The offense has been absolutely putrid. They're ranked near the bottom of the league in passing and scoring. So the fact that Buffalo already looks like a playoff caliber team and the Jags are going in the opposite direction and have a lot of questions that need to be answered on the offensive side of the ball outside of Gabe Davis. So I'm going to take the Bills -5 on this. I think that they're going to win by more than a touchdown.
Love it. Over under at 45.5. I hope that the Bills score 46 points. So that over hits for everybody, but that'd be perfect.
So yeah, should I do the same?
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
So unlike most Monday Night Football nights, we actually have 2 games this week for week 3. So the second game of Monday Night Football is going to be the Commanders at the Bengals. John, I'm going to start off with you again. Tell me what your best bet is for this game. What players do you like? What player prop might you be dealing with tonight or for Monday night?
Well, we already touched on Jamar Chase a little bit, but I'm going to give you some good matchup stats. Also, check that AP score. Look at that. I love it. Now, that's really interesting, too, because he has not cleared this line yet this year. He's been a little bit disappointing to start. But remember, players regress to their mean, not to what have they done lately. You don't want to be too reactionary when you're betting on this stuff. We just watched the Patriots regress to their mean, and Tyler and I were, being a little bit reactionary to how they looked in the first 2 weeks. And as Mike Ditka would say, they are who we thought they were. Or I attributed that to the wrong coach. I'm sorry. It's the other guy.
Dennis Green, I think.
Dennis Green. Thank you. Playoffs.
Okay. We're here to help each other out, man. This is what teammates do.
This is teamwork. Yeah. So anyway, I love this too from a matchup standpoint. Washington is 22nd in pass yards allowed so far this year, 28th in pass yards per attempt, and also that same rank, 28th in yards per completion allowed. So that's largely probably why this EP score is so high. But for the Bengals to get back on track, they're going to have to start feeding this guy. There's injuries across that team. I don't know what T. Higgins' status is for right now, but feed that guy the rock. He's going to be getting targets, receptions, and hopefully over 80.5 reception yards easily. And again, I have it clocked at over 77.5 reception yards because that line is available at 2 different books right now. So definitely shop around for that. You can use the Elite Picks app at the bottom there. It's great. It shows you the line on all the books and where you can get the best price on that line. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the picture that you chose, to be honest with you. It seems like he's a bit of a sourpuss there. And I can see, under the contract.
He's got a game face. He's got a game face down.
But when it comes to this prop, if the Bengals want to win, they have to feed Jamar Chase. They haven't been winning so far. And obviously Jamar Chase hasn't been putting up the numbers that, fans or fantasy football fans want to see. So I'm complete with you. And it was one that I considered and one that I can see why the community is also riding with, just because if they're going to want to win, they're going to need to give them the ball. And, this looks like an opportunity where they should be able to beat the Commanders.
For sure. Beat out what you got cooked up. I hope Joe Burrow's accuracy this week is better than your finger on the unmute button for that last one. I'm just kidding.
Man, yeah, it was bad.
It's a small button. It's a small button.
It is. Big fingers. My elite player of the game, I'm going with Jaden Daniels. under 251 passing and rushing combined. EP scores at come on, man, 95.5. He's been sacked. He's been sacked 7 times in the first 2 games. So his offensive line isn't that great. University of Colorado offensive line is looking better than him this year. So it's gonna limit his his time in the pocket, forcing him to rely on shorter, quicker passes. The defensive matchup with the Bengals, they've been pretty solid this year against the pass and ability to pressure the quarterback. So I think they will make Daniels forcing to make quick decisions, either running or short passes, which is not going to help him, surmount that 251 combined passing and rushing. And Daniels is a hell of a runner. But if you look at the Commanders these past 2 games, they like the quick passing short game, so they reduce the opportunities for Daniels to, like I said, accumulate those large yardage through the air and on the ground. So I think this is a great pick. I know it isn't one of the most known elite players of the game. We usually go with someone that's going to do really, really well. But if we're talking numbers and putting money in your pockets, folks, this is one of the picks that you need to take. How do you guys feel about that?
I love it. You convinced me.
Hey man, come on, man. I try. What you got for us, Ty?
Yeah, so I decided to go with an under on this play. I decided to go with Joe Burrow under 267.5 passing yards. For starters, Burrow has not thrown over 260 yards yet this season. If you look at the Commanders and their passing yards and how much they've allowed per game, they're only allowing about 230. So this is a situation where I just think the number's too high. According to the Elite Picks app, Joe Burrow has the largest passing yard prop of week 3. So I just think this is too high of a number in comparison to how these unders have been going so far and the trends and in terms of a lot of these passing unders to start the season. So give me Burrow's under for this passing game. I'm just not convinced that he's going to come out and throw for 270 plus.
Yeah. And the thing with game scripts too is he doesn't need to throw for over 267 in this game too. Generally, if you have a highly competitive, highly scoring game, you might get some of those higher passing totals. But if they get up early and this game isn't super competitive, which I think if we all had to guess how it was going to go, we'd probably guess that, then that means they're going to be playing ball control and a little bit of clock throughout the process. So, Josh Allen played great against the Miami Dolphins last week, but he only had 139 passing yards on 19 attempts, 13 completions or something like that. So you might not get an impressive stat line from Burrow where he's going over 267 passing yards, but he could still be, he's still definitely an elite player in this game. He could go for 250 and that would be above the average. But yeah, numbers say take the under on this one for sure. And I know that a lot trend wise, a lot of the unders on passing props have been hitting at a historically high clip to start the season because those numbers are often inflated because people generally like to take overs. So yeah, I love that pick.
And last week, I mean, they put up 21 plus points and he didn't reach this mark. So if you're telling me they're going to put up over, what was it, maybe 25 points, 24, 25 points, I think they put up last week. Definitely let me know if I'm wrong there. But he's putting up that and he's not even getting over. So I could easily see them putting up around the similar amount of points and him still getting under this. So I don't necessarily think a win or a blowout win, to your point, John, will necessarily equal this over being hit. So sorry, Joe. I think you got to dye that hair back to your original color because not looking good so far for you, my guy. But hey, it's a very long season, so we'll see what happens. Now let's actually move into the game picks for this game. John, tell me, who do you like? You taking the points here? You giving the points? Tell me who you're leaning.
I think I learned my lesson on Thursday Night Football after taking the road underdog. So I'm gonna go with the Bengals here. Not to be too reactionary. 7.5 points is a lot. It's the largest spread that we've picked so far this season on any of our game picks. So I don't want to take that lightly. I do just think that these teams, they regress to their mean and week 1 might be a liar. Week 2 might be a little bit of a liar, but it's week 3 now. These teams have, whether they got experience in preseason or not, the Bengals always start the season slow. Week 3 is about when they hit their stride. So Washington, still in development at this point. I like Jaden Daniels. I like some of the pieces that they have there, but they're a team that's trying to find their footing, at this point. So I'm going to go with Bengals -7.5 and not make the same mistake that I did giving 5.5 points for the Patriots or anything like that, like we did last. It was terrible. But Pete, what you got for this one?
I'm going with Bengals also. I just think they're going to win the game in general. I think there's a better team. I don't know, how crazy the game is going to get in terms of them blowing the Washington Commanders out, because neither one of these teams are, that great. Even though, Cincinnati did lose by a point to the Chiefs last week. It's different settings, different matchup, and it's going to be raining. So that it may not be that of a high-scoring game, depending on how Joe is throwing that ball. But all in all, I think the Bengals will win this game. And yeah, man, I think we're 2-1 on the season so far. I'm trying to stick with the streak and keep it going, baby. Let's go.
I love it. What about you, Tyler?
So yeah, guys, I got to be honest with you. I'm fading both of you as well as the public. I'm going to take the points and go with the Commanders +7.5. I do not shy away from making the same mistake twice. I also took the Patriots and the points for the Thursday night game, which obviously didn't work out, as John mentioned. But yeah, give me Commanders +7.5. If you look to start the season, underdogs of 6 or more points are 8-0 against the spread. So I'm going to continue to ride that trend until I see otherwise. Just with how this season has gone, and in terms of a lot of these underdogs, winning straight up as well as against the spread. But Bengals had a lot of hype going into this season. A lot of Super Bowl vibes per se, if they could sort of go toe to toe with the Chiefs this season. But out the gate, they have looked very underwhelming. And I know that might not be, or maybe that's considered a norm for this team, that they sort of start slow. But I'm also combining this with the fact that they came off in a very emotional loss against the Chiefs. And that can take a toll on a team. So for those reasons, man, give me Daniels, give me the Commanders, and I think they're going to keep this within a touchdown. Simple as that. Don't need them to win. Just keep it within a touchdown and keep it competitive. They like to lean on Brian Robinson Jr. as well as Austin Eckler. So I think they're going to do a good job of keeping the ball and making sure that possession is on their side, and they'll be able to make this a pretty competitive game. So I'm riding with the Commanders, baby, +7.5.
I love it. Interesting to see how Cincinnati is going to come out of this 0-2 start. Are they going to be? Is it going to continue to be what it's been? Because they can hang toe to toe with the Chiefs, but also can't hang with the Patriots. So yeah, I don't know what this team's going to be this year, but 0-2 team like that, I think is definitely dangerous. So, but I guess we'll see how it goes.
100%.
Yeah, well, that's right. All right, that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider liking and subscribing, everybody. It really does help out the channel. We do appreciate it. Also, leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to see more of, or who you're betting on, what player props, or what sides you'll be betting on for some of these games. And please be sure to take advantage of the free trial for Elite Picks. The link is in the description below. Good luck, everybody, for Sunday and the Monday games. We will see you next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Let's make some money, everybody.